All right, thank you all officially for joining us for How to Use Social Media for Professionals, our workshop today. My name again is Alyssa Gardner with the Grad Academy, and I'll be moderating our panel. We're lucky to have some really wonderful experts in this area to share their guidance and tips with you all today. We have Diane Dulce, my own colleague from the Graduate College, our Director of Marketing and Communications. We have Dr. Karen Hollingsworth, Director of Communications with the College of Liberal Arts, and we have Katie Griffin, who is a social media manager. So I'm only saying just a tiny bit about you all, but I would love to start our conversation by having you each share a little bit about your role and how you use social media professionally through your role. So, Diane, would you get us started, please?
Yes, happy to. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much again for being here, and thank you for having me, Alyssa, in the Grad Academy. So, as the Director of Communications and Marketing for the Graduate College, professionally, I oversee all communications and marketing items for the Graduate College. Please read the newsletters. I send the newsletter every single Monday, like clockwork, at 7:30 a.m. We post on social media different things that we have going on, and I write stories when it comes to students. I love telling student stories, so that's one of my favorite part of my job. But outside of my actual role, I do post on social media personally. I feel like my LinkedIn is almost like my professional archive, which I can get into later. But that's how I use communications and social media in my current role. Thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you so much, Diane. Dr. Hollingsworth, would you share a little bit about your role and how you use social media?
Sure, thank you. Well, as Alyssa said, I'm Karen Hollingsworth, and I serve as the Director of Communications for the College of Liberal Arts here at UNLV. And I've been in this role for 9 years. I just passed that anniversary on March 1st, and I've been at UNLV for about 20 years. And my job is very similar to what Diane just described in her work at the Graduate College. So my role is to promote the people and programs and research and student achievement of our community here in liberal arts and to help people understand the value of liberal arts, both the social sciences and the humanities. So my work is multi-pronged, but social media is one aspect of what I do, and I manage social media for the college across multiple accounts. And we see it as a very important tool to communicate with the campus community as well as students and anyone who might be interested in coming to UNLV or interested in the liberal arts, prospective students, parents, etc. So it's a very powerful tool. Again, it's only one small part of kind of a multi-pronged approach to PR and marketing and communications, but it's a very important one. And I would say the role has grown over the past several years in importance and relevance for us. Oh, and I should mention that, as Diane said, not only do I manage professional accounts for the College of Liberal Arts, but I also am active on social media personally. And I use LinkedIn quite a bit to share with others what I'm doing in my work and some milestones that I'm reaching. Sometimes I share research and other um, relevant topics that I think might be of interest to people, but it is kind of a living, breathing digital archive of what's happening in my career. And I think that's an important tool as a professional to have.
Thank you so much. And you made a great point that this is, it's becoming more and more important to have a presence here as students are pursuing their professional worlds after graduation, as well as, boosting their credentials during their degree program. Katie, would you share a little bit more about your role and experience with professional social media?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks again for having me today. I'm Katie Griffin. I'm the social media manager for UNLV. So I work in UNLV's Central Marketing and Communications Department, and I manage our main official university platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, YouTube, LinkedIn for UNLV, TikTok, and TikTok. And then we're kind of dabbling in a few new platforms. So I manage kind of the day-to-day posting for all of those, work with our team of content creators in the marketing and branding department to create content and then serve as a resource for all of the other communications professionals and social media managers across UNLV. So I've been here actually for just over 10 years. And before that, I worked in web and social media content development at another university. So I've been in higher ed for just over 15 years now. And I've seen a lot of changes. But it's been really interesting to kind of see how things evolve, not only in the social media world, but in the higher education world. As far as professional social media use, I'm consider myself more of I think, a cheerleader on social media in the comments most of my time, or just sharing some of the cool things that our team at UNLV has worked on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all again for being here. Your expertise spans tremendously, and we're just so grateful to have you join us. So, everybody on the call, just so you know, we do have prepared questions. So, I'll start with moderating some of the questions that we have shared with our panelists. But this workshop is for you. So, students, whatever questions you have, I please encourage you to type them in the chat or raise your hand. We are glad to address them throughout this whole conversation. But to get us started, my first question for our panelists: how can graduate students create a professional identity on social sites and maintain boundaries between their personal and professional life? And I am going to say, let's start kind of reverse. And Katie, would you mind taking this one first?
Definitely. So that's a great question to start out with. And I'd probably start off by saying that line, maintaining boundaries between personal and professional social media, is getting very blurred in this day and age. I think probably the most common answer is that LinkedIn really is the professional platform. It's where kind of like it's expected that you post about your professional life and your achievements and kind of the work of your team or the things that you're researching. So using LinkedIn is a really good way to kind of segment your professional identity from your personal identity, which is probably going to be on more of those more traditional social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram that were really created for connecting with like the people in your life that you know, or with brands or influencers that you follow. I do always warn people that being active on social media, even if you're doing it for your personal life, just sharing what's going on, can always still be found by people in your professional circle too. So even if your profile is private, um, things, it's always important just to know that things can still kind of expand out of that platform. So just the biggest advice I can give is to be very mindful of what you're posting, no matter where you're posting it, because anything can be found by anyone. Um, but that if you're really looking to kind of enhance your identity as a professional, LinkedIn is really a great platform to use. Unless you're looking to be an influencer, and then you can uh, definitely be more active on some of the other platforms like Instagram and TikTok and all that. So that's how I'd started out, by just thinking about what the uses of the different platforms are.
Thank you. Dr. Hollingsworth, what would you add to that?
I would add to be careful about the content and be mindful of not posting anything that you would be embarrassed for a colleague or a peer to see. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Katie said about creating a professional identity, which normally that is on LinkedIn, but being aware that people may look at your Facebook or Instagram also. So just in general, trying to maintain an overall professional look and filter those accounts. Even if you're posting more personal information on Facebook or Instagram, you don't want to have any content there, any captions or photos that would be deemed as inappropriate. Be mindful of your language. Um, I would also add to be selective in who you choose to friend or follow. Katie mentioned privacy settings, and those were important. So, make sure you have your settings set to who you're trying to target, the audience that you want to communicate with. But also be careful and be selective. It may not be in your best interest to necessarily friend your boss or your manager, your direct supervisor, um, because you don't want them to know everything about your personal life. On LinkedIn, that's great because you're posting more of your professional journey, your career aspirations, and that kind of thing. But just be mindful that people look at all the different accounts. They may Google you and just go to every link they find. And so you want to be as consistent as you can be without squelching your personality. I mean, you can show your personality and show that, I have fun outside of work and I do interesting things and I have a cool family. But as much as possible, try to be consistent in keeping a positive and professional profile across various platforms.
Thank you. And Diane, is there anything you would add about creating a professional identity and maintaining those boundaries?
I agree with everything my fellow panelists have mentioned. One of the things I was seeing recently on TikTok that was a very controversial thing was a medical school student who actually got in some sort of trouble because of the things that they were posting on TikTok, because the medical school actually have a very strict policy on the use of a social media platform for their students when they're in the lab, showing other students and things like that. So the school had very strict policies. So especially if you're thinking of, let's say right now you're doing your master's, but your goal is to go to one of these professional schools, medical school, law school, dental school, all of these different professional schools. Certain schools actually have a strict social media policy to actually, it's to protect their faculty, but also to protect the students and to protect the integrity of the school. So if that's your path, I would say be very mindful of what you are posting now, because sometimes search committees actually do look you up. It's just one of these things now. Employers look up who they're interviewing at times, and I know professional schools sometimes look up different students. Even if you think your page is private, the information may still be found. So I would say do look at that. I know we've been doing a lot of warning, but you can indeed have fun, right, with the way that you post. One of the things that I used to do when I was a student, I would post the same thing, but with different energy on different platforms. Like if I were to get like a scholarship, I would post the scholarship I got, I would post it on LinkedIn with all of the accolades and thanking the school and whoever I received it from. And then like I'll post that on LinkedIn. And then on Instagram, I may post pictures with my families that went with me just to actually like show and thanking everyone for supporting me. But on LinkedIn, I will post a picture of just me or with whoever handed me the certificate or handed me the check so that I can thank the school. And then like my family and friends can just see like the Facebook post. So it's the same post, but with a different connotation, just because people don't really need to see my family on LinkedIn. That's not what LinkedIn is for. So you can indeed post, the things that you are doing. But if it's something that you don't want to be found, don't post it on any platform. If you don't want to see it on the review journal front page, don't post it on any platform.
Thank you. I think calling to attention the differences between the audiences of each of these platforms is huge. I appreciate starting that thread of the conversation as well. So yeah, thank you all. Thank you for sharing your guidance, your kind of forewarning about approaching these things. So we have each touched on LinkedIn a little bit, but let's dig deeper there for a moment. Can you share some factors or strategies that students should consider when they are developing their LinkedIn profile? How can they make that strong? How can they make it professional? What recommendations do you have? And I will just leave this one to whoever would like to jump in first.
I can go first. So when it comes to LinkedIn, if you are just starting, I would say the first thing to think of is consistency because you don't have to post every day or every week. I would say whatever rhythm you choose that works for you, just keep that rhythm. If you want to post everything, something happened in your academic life, that could be something. Let's say you are doing research or you have creative expression that are happening like in your academic life, you can post that. Let's say you go to a workshop, that can be something that you post to show that, oh, I'm not just a student that goes to class, but I go to a workshop to enhance myself. So that can be something that's very beneficial for employers, or if you want to go the professoriate route when you're done, whatever route you're going, it's always good to show that, oh, I'm not just a student that's within the four walls of my classes or my lab, but I do other things. Let's say you're doing anything with the grad academy, you're receiving the medallion, whatever it is that you're doing that's extracurricular. I would say to post these things and just choose a rhythm that works for you. Because I think sometimes people get hung up of, oh, I need to post every day or I need to post every week. No, you need to post when it works best for you. And whatever rhythm you choose, you just keep that rhythm. For me, when I was a student, I was a part of a lot of different student organizations. So whenever I went to an event, I would post that. Or whenever I get a scholarship, I would post that. Or whenever something cool happened in one of my classes, if I had like a really cool case study, I would post these, like this was the case study I did, and these were my thoughts on it. Those type of things, just to kind of like stay engaged. And every event I go to, I'll post about it just because I just love events.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Hollingsworth, looks like you're ready.
Yeah, I can jump in. Um, I would say there are a couple of key elements that you want to have on your LinkedIn profile, and one is a professional photo or a high quality, high resolution photo. If you're not able to get a professional headshot done, try to get a good quality, high resolution photo. I have seen some opportunities posted lately, though, to get free headshots. So if you check around campus and read UNLV Today and some of the other announcements boards, there are opportunities to get professional photography done. So that's important. And then I would also say make sure to craft a strong introductory statement about your values and your areas of interest and your career aspirations. Try to use keywords that you know align with those values, align with kind of any industry standards there may be for your particular field. Or if you know you're actively in a job search, there may be certain keywords that you see as you look at applications, and you might want to weave some of that language into that introductory statement. So those are two key elements that I think are very important and that you can take a look at from time to time and update and revise as needed, because sometimes your interests change. Your research may inform what that statement may look like. Um, but those are two areas that I know we as professionals look at fairly often for our own profiles. And as our jobs ebb and flow and we take on new duties, our job may evolve and we have a new role or a new emphasis, we may want to update those statements to reflect that and to share, a broad stroke of what our experience is and who we are as a professional.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Diane. If you didn't catch the post in the chat just then, Diane offered a free professional headshot through the Graduate College, and you can sign up there if you need to have one of those for your LinkedIn profile or other uses. Thank you, Diane. And Katie, what would you say about strategies with the LinkedIn profile and building professional kind of brand through that platform?
Yeah, Karen and Diane really shared some great best practices. I would add, don't forget to interact with other people on especially on LinkedIn, with your colleagues, your team members, resharing content or leaving comments, amplifying the work that's going on in your network is also really important and kind of helps, but just kind of like build up that ecosystem of support. So that's a good one too, I would add.
Thank you, and I'd love to keep that going because it's a perfect segue for our next question here. Perhaps you can expand a little bit, Katie. But how can graduate students leverage the power of these social networks to help with their networking, meeting industry professionals, looking at potential employers? What are your recommendations around that?
Um, Along with kind of commenting and amplifying content, I think it's good to use LinkedIn as, kind of an observer. In the old days, we would say a lurker, just to kind of see, like, follow, use it as an opportunity to find other companies and organizations that are aligned with your goals, or even other people. I LinkedIn is interesting in how it's evolved over the years, because I think kind of during its early years it was very much like a faux pas to try to connect with somebody that you didn't know. And to some extent, I think that is still the case, but people are a lot more open about that now. And there's ways to connect with people in other industries that's not necessarily like that network connection. A lot of people have public profiles that you can follow. And then you can kind of build up a connection with them by interacting with their posts as appropriate. I wouldn't necessarily say to interact with everything if you're trying to get attention from another company or an industry leader, but um, just amplifying that work, and then being thoughtful in how you craft your network is a good way to expand your professional footprint, so to speak.
Thank you. Diane, what would you say about using these tools for networking?
Yes, one of the things I usually tell students is usually if you go to a workshop, an event, a conference, and you meet people there, I would say to ask them if they have a LinkedIn or just look them up. Like I used to be like, I don't know if I want to use the word stalker, but I'll say lurker, like Katie mentioned. I would just follow them because it's like I just met you, you know it's me. So I would follow them right after and send like a message to say thank you. It was great meeting you, or just send like some people like to hear good things about themselves, right? So just send like a quick note, a quick message. But people are much more open to helping and connecting with students than when you graduate. It's just have been my experience when I was a student. When you say you were a student, I just want to learn more about your industry, or I admire the work that you're doing. I would love to have a 10-minute conversation with you to learn more about your industry, especially if that's the industry that you want to go in, or you're just curious about the person's work. Most likely people will give you 10 to 15 minutes of their time. So I would say this is a great way to reach out, but don't just reach out without doing your research first. I would say look at a couple of posts, look at a few things that they've done that you genuinely find interest in, and message them based on that so that they can talk to you. Usually people are open to talk to students. And another thing I would say as well, like Katie mentioned, like just being in the comments, but also be careful of like what you are resharing or reposting, because sometimes I see LinkedIn is going down the route of sometimes like Instagram, in a sense, just like these controversial things, and they have like some videos now. When you repost something, your followers can see, and sometimes when you comment on some things, your followers can see certain comments if they follow the same network. So I'll caution there when you're commenting, ensuring that okay, this is something that I want my boss to see that I'm commenting on something along those lines. But reach out to people. Once you are a student, like you have that free card, but once you graduate, it's almost like, yeah, you graduate, you coming for my job now. But once you're a student, oh, it's just a student that wants to learn. And that's just had been my experience when I was a student.
That's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Um, and I think Dr. Hollingsworth, was there anything that you wanted to add about networking through these social platforms?
I would add one thing that I think students can take advantage of, and that is asking for recommendations from trusted, credible professionals that you already know. So if you're working in a research lab, you might ask your lab director to write a little bit about your work. Maybe you're co-authoring a paper. or maybe you've done a poster presentation and they mentored you and guided you through that process. Maybe you've done a couple of internships. You might ask um, an internship supervisor to write something about you. And those are aspects that are good to have on your profile so that as you reach out and begin to network, or you send someone a message, as Diane said, maybe after a conference, you connected with someone and you send them um, a connection request when you get back from the conference. It's great if you can have a little more information there about who you are and the work you're doing, and that would help them understand and add more context to why you're reaching out and why you're wanting to get to know them a little bit better. Those are things that are just good to have there, and try to seek those out as you have these different experiences to help build your professional profile. And I think that would help, if you reach out to someone with a connection request, they can read a little more about you, and that helps them decide, hey, that's a good person to talk to, or that grad student is doing similar research to something that I did. And having those recommendations on your page can help strengthen that, I think.
Thank you so much. So interesting how you each pulled like pretty different items around LinkedIn there, or around the networking piece, and all of them could be useful to our students. Thank you very much. And I did receive a question from a student here. So this student says, I only maintain a LinkedIn profile and stay off other social media platforms. Does a lean digital presence like this typically have any impact, positive or negative, on professional growth? And we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So if anyone has initial thoughts, I welcome you to jump in.
I can jump in. That is a complicated question. I think it probably depends on a few different factors, like your industry, um, and well, industry being a big one, because not and your maybe potential employers, because um everybody kind of has like a different perspective on how active someone should or should not be on social media. That's always kind of a tricky thing to navigate, is because it's such a big part of our lives. Everyone has different thoughts and feelings. If it were me, and I saw a candidate that only had a LinkedIn, I wouldn't really think twice about that. I would just think like, oh, this is a private person and they only want to share certain aspects of their professional life with the rest of the world. And I think that's perfectly reasonable, but that could vary based on the industry that you're in. Um, so that's one thing to keep in mind too. But initially, I think especially if your LinkedIn is very consistent with like your resume and other materials, I think that would be, I don't think that would hinder you necessarily for most people. But I am curious to hear what Karen and Diane think.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Yeah, Dr. Hollingsworth, what do you think?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Katie, on that. I think that it's a subjective thing, it's personal preference, but I don't think it's detrimental necessarily to have a lean digital presence. I think having an active page where you engage and you post or you reshare information that's relevant to your degree program or your area of interest, or you follow different professional associations and different influencers or industry leaders, I think that that can be very beneficial. And if they look for you and they find you on LinkedIn, I think if you have a well-rounded presence and a profile that is up to date and engaging, I think that's more than enough. You don't necessarily have to have the other platforms where, as we mentioned before, we tend to share more personal information anyway. So I think discretion is always good. And you can always add to that later if you want to be active on other platforms. But I think LinkedIn is certainly a good place to start. And just having an active and engaging page is the main thing.
The one thing I will add to that, I know we talk about the benefits of it. The only downside would be if you're using LinkedIn for the other, like as the other platforms. Like if you're sharing all the personal things, which I don't think this person would be since they say it's a lean page. So that would be the only time where it's detrimental is if you only have LinkedIn, but you post as if it's on TikTok. Because TikTok, you post, I feel like TikTok is one of these platforms that you have no filter. You just post the first thing that comes to your mind. At least that's how I use it. Please don't follow me on TikTok. So at least that's how I use it. And I feel like Instagram is more like family oriented. You still kind of like polish Instagram and Facebook a little bit, but TikTok is just, TikTok is just TikTok. So that's the only way I would say it's detrimental is if you posting those things that should be on the other platform. The only thing I know Katie mentioned on industry. So let's say, for instance, someone who's in communications and marketing, right? I would at least, even if it's not your personal page, for me, if I'm hiring someone in communications and marketing, if it's not your personal page that I would see as kind of like a portfolio, I would want to see like the pages that you've managed before. So that's usually like one way. One of the things that I did before I came into communications and marketing full time, before I was managing a professional account, I created another page for myself and I used that page as my portfolio so that when I was looking for work in the industry, I can show people these are the type of posts that I do, these are the type of articles I write, these are the type of things that I do. Because in this industry specifically, usually when you apply for a job, for a digital marketing job, you want to show that you have that aspect and that you can do it. But if that's not your industry, then it's okay to have a minimal LinkedIn presence or no LinkedIn presence at all. I think it's to each their own, is what I would say.